self-defense legislation apply to them. So the amendment would let this apply to someone who simply is in lawful possession.
Is there anyone willing to offer the amendment? Okay, Representative Bacall is going to offer the amendment as read by Ms. Fogelman. Is there any opposition to the amendment? Would there be no opposition to the amendment is passed and carried on. And we have Representative Marcel for a question. You waive? I think she is. I think she's ready for questions.
Back on the bill, I just wanted to say that the purpose of this bill is to add this protection because we're seeing attacks on churches in increasing number. Especially, we have the most recent attack on a synagogue in San Diego last weekend, and then of course just a few weeks ago in Louisiana, we had 3 church fires. So it's obvious that churches have become targets, and so this would add some simple self-defense protections.
Representative Amadou.
Representative Marcel, 3 minutes.
Question. Would you agree that Louisiana already has a stand your ground law that protects people?
I do, but I'm told that it does not extend specifically into churches.
And so you think we need to add another layer of protection just specifically for churches?
Yes, churches, and I'm using the word churches to include places of worship in general.
And you don't see why that would be a problem? Using deadly force? You think that we need more guns rather than less?
It's not about guns, it's just about whether a person who has to take steps in defense of themselves when they're under attack like this would be granted those same kinds of self-defense protections that we currently have in our homes, in our cars, and businesses.
So question, a person walks, first of all, you're at a place of worship or fellowship, you know, you're supposed to be there praising and worshiping, right? So your mind is not necessarily waiting on anybody to run in with a gun, right? Is that correct?
That's what we would hope, and throughout history it seems that places of worship have always been seen as places of peace, neutral ground.
Correct. But my point is, how does this law help someone to defend themselves when that happens? How does that happen? How does that help them?
It would help them so that they're not faced with the kinds of I'm struggling to find the words because I'm not an attorney. I don't know the right legal words.
I'm struggling to figure out what your bill's doing.
It adds the stand your ground protections to when someone...
So really we're inviting people to take weapons to church?
No ma'am, that doesn't change that.
I mean, if you give them a false sense of security, I think you do.
I don't know that this adds any false sense of security. This is after the fact. These are protections for the charges that they may face after the fact if deadly force has become necessary for self-defense.
So we're going to give another layer of defense for people who may have shot someone, right?
Well, it adds to their protections under the law after the fact.
I don't think they need additional protection. I think that the law as it stands protects people, and I think this just is another layer of unnecessary legislation, and I think we're expanding the stand your ground law, and I think we need to be careful as we travel this slippery slope. Thank you.
Please turn your cell phones off. If you have to take a call, please step out in the hall. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Representative Marcel. Representative Norton, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whomever choose to, if you choose to, Mr. Chairman, you can help me out here. I was under the impression that we already had a law that gave persons the opportunity to bring a gun to church as long as they got the okay from the minister to bring that gun to church. Do we not already have a law that says that?
Question, Ms. Amity?
I thought she was asking.
I was asking you, Mr. Chairman.
It's not my bill, so I'm gonna give you the answer.
But I'm sure that we do already have I just want to make sure I got clarification. If we already have a law that will allow persons to bring a gun to church, then what is the difference between that law that we passed maybe a year or 2 years ago, maybe even longer, then why are we bringing another one?
This one will not affect those laws. This one doesn't change any of those laws. This is a bill that would help after the fact, should someone end up needing to perform deadly force in self-defense. This would affect what they could be charged with after the fact. This doesn't change whether or not they can bring a gun into a church.
So you're saying that if someone brings a gun to church and there is, should I say, an altercation and someone gets killed, you're saying that this law would protect that person who brought the gun to church and they got into an altercation? Is that what you're saying?
If they are legally able to carry that gun, then it would offer them the same kinds of protections that they would have had if the same altercation took place in their home, their car, or their place of business.
I'm not sure the same thing, I'm not sure that the same law could take place in a church versus your home.
Well, that's what this bill
So
would do.
what you're trying to do here is whatever happens in your home related to a shooting, a killing, or whatever, you want it to be the same law for the church? Is that what you're saying?
In general, yes, the stand your ground law would extend the same kinds of protections that currently apply to your home, your car, or your place of business to a place of worship.
I think that's a little bit different. I'm not sure I can live with that one. Because church is one thing, home is another. Home is where you live, church is where you worship. And that's a totally different thing. But thank you for the answers anyway. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Representative Norton, Ms. Fogelman pulled the existing laws.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Representative Duplessis, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Representative Amadi. The question has already been asked around whether or not Louisiana, we know Louisiana already has a stand your ground law, and I think one of the most unfortunate things that we're all dealing with right now throughout this country and in Louisiana is the fact that we can't go to church without fear of being shot. That is unfortunate. And I have other opinions as to why that is, but the reality is it's the current state of where we are. So you're trying to address that with this bill.
That's correct.
Can you cite any instances or examples of when someone had to use Louisiana's current stand your ground law and it was deemed inadequate? In other words, when someone had to exercise self-defense by using lethal force, or not even lethal force, but any kind of force that they felt was justified to protect themselves, and Louisiana's current stand your ground law was inadequate?
I cannot. I have not studied the outcomes of the different cases. This came about in conversation about churches seeming to be targets in this day and time, and searching for ways that we could give people a little more peace in knowing that should they have to take action for self-defense, that there would be similar protections as to what we currently have in homes and businesses and cars.
Well, the unfortunate thing is that this bill gives me less peace, because if I'm in your home, I have a level of respect for you in your home, so I'm going to conduct myself in a way that's going to show that I'm in your home, and there's certain rights associated with your home. If I'm in church, anyone who I'm standing next to could feel threatened for any reason, and I could be shot, and they could basically say that they felt threatened, just like as though they were in their home, and they could use your law if I'm in my place of worship just worshiping. I mean, that's how I read this bill, and I don't think that's your intent, but I think it opens the door for anyone at any time to say that they feel threatened, and they feel however they feel, and they're now justified to shoot me. So unfortunately, this bill gives me more concern, and gives me less peace. I think it's a bit extreme, and unfortunately, I'm not in favor of supporting it, because I think the stand your ground laws can be exploited, and I believe they have been exploited, because your definition of fear could be different than my definition of fear. And I just think it's an unfortunate slippery slope. But we already have a stand your ground law, and because we can't cite any examples where the current one has been deemed inadequate, I think that you are trying to protect people in places of worship, but it could ultimately lead to more shootings, in my opinion.
That's your 3
I
minutes.
understand.
Thank you.
And I'd like to just say that whatever the same grounds are for self-defense when you feel threatened, it's going to apply here the same way. In other words, it wouldn't just be a matter of I'm standing in worship and, oh my goodness, the person beside me seems to be angry or is somehow offending me. It would be a matter of someone is actively threatening my very life to the point where I feel that I must defend my very life. So, thank you.
Representative Cartner, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Amity, I think I understand where you're trying to go with your bill. I just have personal feelings about guns in places. And I look upon the church as a place of peace, solace, and respite, if necessary. I'd like to know from you, what other states have this particular law that you know of?
I haven't researched that to make a list, I'm sorry.
So it could possibly be first for Louisiana?
It could be, I'm not aware.
Okay. Then why have you not looked to see what other states are doing, if very much like the stand your ground law?
Well, because it doesn't really matter to me personally how many other states might already have it in place. It just appeals to me as a good idea based on our laws, our stand your ground laws. I know they vary from state to state.
Right.
So whether we're the 1st, the 5th, or the 30th, I really don't know. I just like the idea.
So it could be something widespread. It
Could
would
be, I don't
add to the possibility of more guns out there in places that we would least expect. Possibly.
I don't know that it would increase the appearance of guns in places we least expect, and I do appreciate your comments about churches being places of peace and respite. That's what I'm trying to protect.
But you feel that the gun in a church, in any situation as such, might help to make that happen?
Not necessarily. Whether a gun is present or not, this bill doesn't affect that.
How not?
This bill only applies after the fact, so that should someone happen to have to take actions of self-defense, that this bill would offer them the similar protections to what we already have for actions in your home, your car, and your business.
Well, out of respect to you, I just feel that this is not the right way to go right now with it. And so I thank you for bringing your bill, but I cannot support it in its present form.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Representative Cartner. Representative James, 3 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Amade. Just a couple questions. The definition of place of worship. We have a prayer room in this building. Will this building apply? Because the law says place of worship includes any church, synagogue, mosque, or other building or place used for religious worship or other religious purpose. We have a prayer room in this building. Will the state capitol apply to this bill?
I don't believe that it would include the state capitol. The prayer room in this building is not designated as a general place where the public comes to gather in groups to worship, as much as it offers a room where individuals may find a quiet place away from the hustle and bustle and noise in the hallways.
But your bill does say other religious purpose. Do you believe that if a group of us gather to go in there and pray, is that a religious purpose?
That would be a religious purpose, but this building is first and foremost the state capitol.
But the bill doesn't say that the building has to be used. It just says other building, and the state capitol is a building. So the bill doesn't clarify whether or not the state capitol or a hospital. A hospital, there are several different rooms there. Women's hospital. My family, we gathered there to pray before my daughter was born. Will a hospital, women's hospital qualify as a place where folks can bring guns under your bill?
Just like the state capitol building having a room, hospitals have a room designated as a chapel room, but the building is first and foremost a hospital, and the bill certainly doesn't increase where a person may carry.
But your bill doesn't say that. That's my problem. I understand your question, your answer to my question, but your bill doesn't say that. And a church, a school, right? Catholic schools. I have one in my district, St. Thomas More. Would that qualify? And that's the problem that I have with your bill. I understand the problem that you're attempting to solve. Let me go to another question. Your bill against a person who's attempting to make an unlawful entry. Who decides if a person, how do you make an unlawful entry into a church?
The churches that I know of during service times are open to anyone. Their doors are not locked.
Exactly. So how do you make an unlawful entry into a place that's open to everyone? Who's going to determine that?
I don't know that unlawful entry comes into play in the wording of the bill.
It definitely does. I invite you to page 1, line 18, against a person who is attempting to make an unlawful entry into the dwelling, place of business, or place of worship. And you just stated that a church is open to everyone. So how do you determine if I make an unlawful entry into a church?
We're almost to 3 minutes.
In this case, it would probably be after hours when the church is locked, the person is broken in. But an unlawful entry during a church service would be after someone has been strictly forbidden according to whatever the laws are that state how you remove a person who is forbidden.
What does the law say about removing a person from a church that's
sure.
open to everyone?
The same thing as it would say from removing a person from any other private place.
The problem is that the law doesn't. And what's going to happen is I walk into a church that is, I have a very strong relationship with the Jewish community because of outside groups that I'm affiliated with. I walk into a synagogue, somebody might assume that Ted James is there unlawfully and start unloading on me without any idea of my connection to that church. Or if you walk into my church, right, somebody might assume that you're there unlawfully. And that's what your bill invites. And that's my problem with it, because there are countless stories in our community, and I hate to bring them back up. And I know some of you are tired of hearing them, but I'm tired of experiencing them, right? I'm tired of hearing time after time when these laws that are meant to protect people aren't applied equally to people that look like me. And I don't want to invite you to walk into my church and one of my church members think that you're there unlawfully because you don't look like the members. And that's what your bill invites. Or for me to walk into a Jewish synagogue and someone unload on me because I don't look like I belong there. And I could be there unlawfully. Staff, I just have one question for staff.
I don't believe that our laws that allow for self-defense would allow you to shoot someone because they walked in.
Well, the laws
They have to
allow you to.
actually-
All right, let's ask staff our question. 3 minutes is up.
Okay,
Which
I
question?
just, staff, does the current law, the current stand your ground law that we have in Louisiana apply to churches?
Ms. Fogle?
I don't know that I can answer that question directly. I could point you to, there's a provision in Title 14:22, where it says it is justifiable to use force or violence or to kill in the defense of another person when it is reasonably apparent that the person attacked could have justifiably used such means himself, and when it reasonably believed that such intervention was necessary to protect the other person. That doesn't limit it to any particular setting. So in the respect that RS 14, 19, or 20 don't limit the setting in which the defense would apply, then it could apply in a church setting, I believe.
Thank you, Representative Bond.
Thank you, Representative James. Representative Cruz, 3 minutes.
Representative Amadei, from what I've seen in the news, the latest attacks we all see are at churches, schools, malls, and stuff like that. Why do you suppose they're in those places and not in gun stores and police stations?
Good question. I would suspect that the places that you mentioned where the attacks occur most often are those places where the criminal expects to have the least resistance, to have people gathered who have the least ability to fight back, especially with deadly force.
Okay, I think I agree with that. Have you heard the terms, alternative terms for churches and stuff like house of worship, or the members being called a church family? So those terms to me say this should be something by stand your ground laws because it's an extension of the home. It's where you gather together with other people of like mind, like faith. So I think this is a good law, a good idea for a law. I heard that a question asked where we saw stand your grounds laws seem inadequate. And I argue there aren't any. That's why we would want to extend it to places of worship. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think it's a great bill.
Thank you, Representative Cruz. And again, those of you standing in the back or anyone wanting to come in, there's an overflow room in Committee Room 3 with a monitor set up. Okay, we have Representative Bacala, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oftentimes, Representative Amade, I think we come in to clarify laws. It's not really to create something new. It's just to clarify or perhaps extend slightly. Do you see this as being a new law or simply a clarification or making sure that the law applies everywhere it's applicable?
I see this not as really a new law in as much as an expansion of the protections we currently already have in self-defense in our homes, cars, and businesses to our places of worship.
And in that regard, I think the same argument, any argument that's being made here today by our other representatives on this committee, if this entire bill that's already in law were being debated today, these same arguments would probably be made, I'm guessing. So the point is that we pass this law. This is just making sure that we don't. I think your idea is that we don't treat a church with lesser protections than we offer to a business or to a home or to any place where somebody may live. So we're not expanding so much as we're just making sure there's some degree of equality of locations where this law applies. It's been on the books for years, correct?
That's right, and it's only coming up today because of the pattern that we're seeing over the past few years with the increasing attacks on churches.
Well, I'll say that I may be the only guy in this room that's ever been to the aftermath of a church shooting. In 1999, New St. John Baptist Church, a guy went in, killed his wife, his 2-year-old son, a parishioner at random, and shot 4 other people. So I know firsthand what this is, and perhaps that could have been prevented by the right place, but the right person in the right place would have prevented this guy from breaking into this church, if you want to call it that, but would you say walking in the front door with guns in hand? All right, so the idea that just the wrong person walking in, I think it's pretty obvious when a guy is toting a bunch of weapons and they're in hand, they're not concealed, and you're walking into a church with anger in your face. That's somebody you need to prevent walking into a church. So I'll make that comment. I'll leave the rest of the 3 minutes to you. And Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chairman.
I like the first term first.
Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead. Had to slide it in.
Are you taking my 3 minutes?
No, sir. I'll yield you a few more seconds. You keep talking like that.
At the appropriate time, I would move favorable, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Bacala. Representative Hodges, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, pretty much Representative Bacala covered everything that I was going to say, and what you want to be clear about, this is not allowing guns in churches. That's already in law, right?
That's correct. This doesn't change whether a gun is allowed or not allowed.
Right. So we want to be clear about that. We're not expanding the definition. All we're saying is the same protection that you would have in your home and your car and a business. We're expanding that to churches where we are seeing more and more, unfortunately, more and more attacks in America and across the world in churches. And so thank you for bringing this bill. I really appreciate it, Representative Amade.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Representative Hodges. Representative Dwight, 3 minutes.
I'll be very brief. Representative Bacala had most of my comments and questions, but you were asked earlier if we would be the first state to do this. And it looks like you took what Oklahoma did last year and kind of copied some of the things that they did, adding places of worship to that. And you were being asked about that, but it looks like Oklahoma already passed that, so it looks like we're kind of mirroring that. But I appreciate you bringing this bill. I like the intent of your bill. It looks like it's trying to make the places of worship safer for everyone to go to, and I appreciate you bringing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dwight. Okay, there are no more questions in the queue, and we're not going to double dip. So when you use your 3 minutes, you can't use it 3 minutes on another witness. So we do have some people who want to come speak, though. We have Mr. Everett Baton from Firearm Professionals of Louisiana. Mike Weinberger, Home Defense Foundation. Y'all come on up. Welcome to the Capitol, guys. Okay. Mr. Baton, you're first.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Everett Baton. I'm an attorney and I am a concealed handgun permit instructor, and I'm here today on behalf of Firearm Professionals of Louisiana, which is all the purple people assembled here in this morning. We represent the over 2,000 firearm professionals in the state, in every district of the state, who are engaged in the business dealing with firearms, including 1,900 certified concealed handgun permit instructors, of which I am one. As an attorney and a concealed handgun permit instructor myself, I've had the opportunity to become intimately familiar with our self-defense laws. Unfortunately, 3 minutes is not nearly enough time to address all the confusion that seems to abound in this room today. So I'm going to try to limit my comments to what I find to be the most salient. Our current law already has pretty expansive protections for people who use force or violence in self-defense. To clear up something that keeps being raised today, people keep saying in your home or your business, I would like to draw the body's attention to the language of the statute that applies to any person who is lawfully inside a dwelling, a place of business, or motor vehicle. One does not have to be the owner of the dwelling or the place of business. Any person who is lawfully inside any one of these facilities can use deadly force against someone who is using force or violence against any other person therein, or who is attempting to make an unlawful enforced entry therein. So already, if you are in any place of business and someone is up to no good, you would be allowed to use deadly force and avail yourself of the presumptions in 1419 and 1420. I see no reason why a place of worship should have fewer protections than any place of business that anyone may find themselves therein. And also, this has been the law for quite some time now, and I'd like to draw everyone's attention to the clear fact that chaos has not reigned in the state of Louisiana as a result. Again, there's always still a reasonableness requirement for the use of deadly force. So these many hypothetical Wild West situations where someone would be shot for simply appearing out of place, I think is overblown. That has not happened in any of the other many locations where these protections already apply. To address issues like the state capitol, that's already a prohibited location to carry guns, so whether or not the prayer room would count doesn't matter. Again, as has been said sort of ad nauseum at this point, this does not change where one would be lawfully allowed to carry a gun. Any church is still lawfully allowed to prohibit firearms in that church if they choose. So this would only really make a difference to churches that chose to allow guns into their congregation, just so that they don't have to worry if their congregants might face civil or criminal penalties in the event that they do have to stop an attack.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Weinberger, 3 minutes.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. My name is Mike Weinberger. I am the founder of the Home Defense Foundation. I think I've been here once or twice before, so some of you guys and gals know me. I also work with the Firearm Professionals of Louisiana. I guess I'm co-founder with Chris Patron and a few others of that group. I'm very familiar with 1419 and 1420 because working with Greg Riley and Joe Lapinto, the three of us more or less wrote it 4 years ago in response to the Merritt Landry shooting that took place 4 blocks from my home. That statute, as has been pointed out correctly, gives you certain protections if you're in your home, your car, or your place of work. And all this is doing, all this extension is doing, or amendment, however you want to phrase it, is it's applying the same protections if you're in a place of worship. And I have to agree with Representatives Bacala and Dwight when they said it should be fairly obvious to anybody that what is trying to be addressed here is an attacker, not someone who just walks into a place and is assumed to be some sort of a crazy man. You're talking about an attacker. In almost all these cases, think about it, in almost all these cases, someone walks into a place of worship with a gun, exposed, and starts shooting people. And that's the problem that this bill is trying to address. And as has been pointed out, what it does is it gives the protection, the legal protection of the presumption that what you're doing is correct when you defend the other parishioners or congregants and you confront the person who's walked in with a gun and start shooting. So if you already have that protection in your home and your place of work and your car, why not extend it if someone is coming in with a gun shooting to a place of worship? I think it's an excellent idea, and on behalf of the Home Defense Foundation, and I think I can speak on behalf of the firearm professionals, we support this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Weinberger. Also filling out cards in support is Stephen Briggs, representing himself, Kevin Hayes with the Chief of Police, Shirley McNary, representing herself, Home Defense Foundation, Mary Sue DeRoos, Home Defense Foundation, Craig Cameron, Home Defense Foundation, Carl Sennenberg, Home Defense Foundation, Mark Zorig, Home Defense Foundation, Noah Zawitz, Home Defense Foundation, is it Marley Schwimmer, Home Defense Foundation, Woodward Logan, Home Defense Foundation, Lionel David, Home Defense Foundation, Nona Cavalier, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Penny Rabelais, Home Defense Foundation, John Leary, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Judy Newman, Home Defense Foundation, Kenneth Robert, Home Defense Foundation, Lee Schwall, Home Defense Foundation, Gerald Newman, Home Defense Foundation, John Stumpf, Home Defense Foundation, Roy Zania, Home Defense Foundation, is it Elia Dragonis, I like it, Home Defense Foundation, Malcolm Terrio, Home Defense Foundation, Robert Hennessy, Home Defense Foundation, Richard Rowley, Home Defense Foundation, Anna Vollenwater, Home Defense Foundation, Don Wall, CELA, Aaron Looper, NRA, Henry Ellis, representing himself, John Black, Home Defense Foundation, Shirley Adams, Home Defense Foundation, John Moncade, Home Defense Foundation, Lee Tucker, Home Defense Foundation, Ed Pazarat, Home Defense Foundation, Fabian Blanche, Louisiana Association Chief of Police, Kathleen Bienfield, Louisiana Family Forum, Maurice Molo, Home Defense Foundation, Eugene Morrell, Home Defense Foundation, is it Douglas Swift, Home Defense Foundation, Michael Summerall, Home Defense Foundation, Mary Cassard, Home Defense Foundation, Andrea Ligo, Home Defense Foundation, Nina Rowland, Home Defense Foundation, Michael Burrat, Home Defense Foundation, Nolan Gavin, Home Defense Foundation, Dennis Burke, Home Defense Foundation, Michael Helms, represent himself, Jay Wiggins, Firearm Professionals, Daniel Zalika, Louisiana Shooting Association, Joshua Bardwell, Acadian Abusement LLC, Joshua Barnhill, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Joe Kelly, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Noel Cusimano, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Charles Duez, Firearm Professionals, Everett Bodin, Firearm Professionals, Christopher Cavalier, Firearm Professionals, Wayne Herbert, Home Defense Foundation, Michael Tiffer, Firearm Professionals, Louis Darris, Firearm Professionals, Tom Grisham, Self, Adrian Pilot, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Michael Brooks, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, John Technical Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Patricia Myers, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Chris Patron, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Nia Hull, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Bernard Faye. Yeah, my 3 minutes are up. And we're going to be doing this in Globo the next couple bills. Jeffrey Fontenot, Home Defense Foundation, David Gross, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Penny Patron, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Alan Freese, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Terry Lozier, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, James False, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, Luther Tullis, Firearm Professionals Louisiana, and Brian Guillory, Firearm Professionals Louisiana. Okay, those are the cards in support. We do have some cards in opposition with members who wish, or people who want to speak. Megan Hudson, if you want to come to the table. Thank you, gentlemen. Representative Moreno has a question. Okay, hold up, Mike. Mr. Moreno has a question for you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And your 3 minutes starts now.
Thank you. Mr. Weinberg, you said that you were helped to draft this, the RS 14:19, is that
19 and 20.
19 and 20?
After Merritt Landry was shot. I mean, actually, after Merritt Landry had to defend himself, sorry.
Okay, so I'm trying, I know it's the current law right now, and everybody understands the part about inside your dwelling or your home.
Right.
I'm trying to see how we're pairing together the place of business and place of worship. Why is it that when the law was drafted that it's limited to dwellings, places of business, or motor vehicles initially? What was the...
Well, I did not work on the initial draft. It's a good question. I didn't work on the initial draft, which I think was a 2006 draft. And in the 2006 draft, they limited to those 3 spots. The problem with the 2006 draft, the craziness was that if someone was coming into one of those 3 spots, violently breaking the law and so forth, and you shot them to defend your home, and they died, you had a presumption that what you did was legal. You didn't have to say anything. Someone's breaking into your home, you use a firearm, they died. The presumption was that your shot was correct legally. You didn't have to prove they had a gun. You didn't have to prove they had a knife. You didn't have to prove that they were charging you. They break into your home, that's it, you use your gun. But the problem with that law was, what if they got to the ambulance came quickly, and the guy breaking into your home got some very talented doctors in the ER room, and they saved him. They saved the guy. You lose the presumption of innocence. You lose the presumption that your shot was legally correct. It was a crazy misdrafting of the law.
No, I get it.
So what I did was I drafted something that extended the presumption to my neighbor who was arrested in that case, and and we also changed the wording of in your home, in your car, in your place of work to in your home when the event started, as Merritt was in his home when the event started, but he had to defend his family right outside the door. So we extended the area of protection. But we did not get into churches. To be honest, it didn't even occur to me at the time to speak to Joe and to Greg that we have to extend this to churches or places of worship.
Why is it limited to, I mean, well, it excludes public places then, right?
Well, it doesn't exclude, the wording does not have any exclusionary language to my memory. It says it applies to your home, it could be anyone's home in which you're legally there, your place of work or your car. Right. Those are the 3 locations. Right. So it doesn't actually exclude. And by the way,
well, if it doesn't include them, it's excluding them. No, I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, it seems I'm trying to get the intent of the law, and see how. What I'm trying to figure out is how place of business and place of worship, whether those two.
Why should there be a distinction?
Or should there not? That's where I'm going for, and I don't understand. There's clearly when it was drafted to limit it to your home, a business, and a vehicle. So that's
close to you 3.
I know. Well, he did most of the talking. I haven't said 3 minutes worth of questions yet. I mean, with all due respect. But so it seems to me though, on a side note, aside from that, and maybe somebody else can address that part about trying to explain to me the difference between the 2. Doesn't the provision that Ms. Fogelman read, the defense of others, isn't that already a provision in the law that would allow you?
No, that does not get, no, there's a difference between being allowed to use force and having the presumption that the force you used was legally correct. You can use force in the parking lot and you may have to defend yourself to a DA. But if you're in your home, your place of work, or your car, there's a presumption. You don't have to prove anything. There's a presumption that your actions are correct when you're defending your home. So now they're extending the presumption to a place of worship. If someone comes in with violent intent, with a gun, obviously the same presumption that applies to your home should apply to that church.
And one final point, and again, someone else can follow up on it, is what I heard Representative James mention, it seems like it's kind of going to be something hard to factor in. What is an unlawful entry into a place of worship? That's an element.
That might be subject to an amendment, you know, for example, openly carrying a firearm, openly threatening. Now, if it was worded like that, that might be something to consider. And that would make it very, very clear. And in all these cases, I think we've seen the person is entering with a gun. And so why not give the congregants the right to defend themselves and the rest of the congregation, and then give them the presumption that what they did was legal? Someone comes in charging a church with a gun, give the congregant who protects the congregation the presumption, the protection, the legal protection that what he or she has done is correct.
Thank you, Representative Moreno. Thank you, Mr. Weinberg.
Yes,
thank you. All right, Ms. Hudson, Megan Hudson, are you in the chamber? Okay. Reverend Kelly and Angel Bradford, you wish to speak? These are cards in opposition. And if anyone knows Miss Hudson, if y'all want to try to get her in.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Reverend.
I'm Herman O'Kelly Jr. I'm the pastor of Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church. I've been there 21 years. I'm the native of Florida. We have a stand your ground law in Florida. One young man was in the parking lot, a person of color. His music was loud. The person thought his life was threatened. They shot him. My son is a policeman. My son is presently applying for the FBI. I know about guns. As a pastor, after I deal with violence in the community, when I come to church, I want to have peace. When I pray and I preach and I heal wounded spirits, I want it to be a place of peace. I don't want to have to duck for somebody coming in and shooting. And as Representative James said, I go to all different churches. I might come and visit. I'm a person of color. I don't want people to think that I'm always trying to aggravate a situation. I'm concerned about, I have a security team at my church. They know exactly what to do. I don't need other guns in the church. I have a security consultant. He tells me what to do. So I'm against this bill because a house of worship should be a place for people to find peace, solace after being in a hurting world. The world is already hurting. I don't want to hurt when I go to church. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you. All right. Is it Ms. Bradford?
Yes, I'm Jill. I am the state chapter lead for Moms Demand Action here in Louisiana, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. We have hundreds of members across Louisiana, and so I'm just here today to highlight some of our concerns with the bill. We are here because we oppose the bill HB 235, which greatly expands Louisiana's stand your ground to allow the use of deadly force to prevent a person from unlawfully entering or remaining in a place of worship. I go to church here in Baton Rouge. It is my faith that gives me the strength and courage to take on a lot of the volunteering work that we do. I am protected by God, and we all are. And I would not experience greater safety in church by knowing that certain folks that simply have guns, not necessarily trained to de-escalate situations, to neutralize threats, but average church members have broad discretion to shoot someone in the church, whether or not the person poses a threat. The misperception of danger worries me most, and unlike current law, HB 235 would allow people to shoot people in churches without feeling threatened in the first place. You can just claim it afterwards. One reason why you should also oppose this bill is because we already have a stand your ground law in Louisiana. This law allows a person to use lethal force to defend himself or herself or another from serious bodily harm anywhere he or she has a right to be, even if the shooter has a clear opportunity to safely leave the area. Places of worship are included in this law. There is no need to further expand stand your ground. This bill is an extreme expansion of stand your ground. It allows the use of deadly force to prevent a person from unlawfully entering or remaining in a place of worship, even if it's not necessary to do so, and even if the shooter does not fear injury at all. Even worse, the bill gives no clarity on how one distinguishes if a person is in a place of worship unlawfully. How would one determine this in places that are not only open to the public, but invite people from all walks of life to enter? We are all worried about keeping places of worship safe. Right here in Louisiana, 3 churches in Opelousas Parish were burned to the ground by a man with racist intentions. but passing HB 235 would move us in the wrong direction. Expanding Louisiana's stand your ground law would do little to promote church security and would further embolden people to shoot first and ask questions later. Stand your ground laws do nothing to reduce gun violence or keep people safe. In fact, states with stand your ground laws see more gun violence and more gun homicides. Additionally, stand your ground often ends up protecting people who have violent histories. For example, in Florida, nearly 60% of those Floridians who claim stand your ground had been arrested at least once before the day they killed someone. About a third of those defendants have been accused of violent crimes, including assault, battery, or robbery. We should not respond to concerns about safety in places of worship by passing this dangerous and unnecessary bill. There are other solutions that don't encourage gun violence in churches and don't expand on an already flawed policy. I encourage you to vote no on HB 235.
Thank you, ma'am, and right on time. Thank you. Ms. Hudson, did Ms. Hudson ever come back into the chamber? She filled out a card wanting to speak. Okay. Also filling out cards in opposition is Ryan Shaw with Moms Demand Action for Gun Safety in America. Amy Sidrus, Moms Demand Action. Sally Adrez, Moms Demand Action. Ryan Haney, Everytown. Jennifer Harding, PSN. Lorraine O'Shea, Indivisible. Sentla Moms, okay, all right. Dan Kurtz, Louisiana Interchurch Conference. Clarice Calgoas, Moms. Lachey Cretan, Moms, and Sharon Soulier, Moms Demand Action. Okay, Representative Amity, you want to close on your bill? Also fill out cards for informational purposes is Michael Paul Bryant and Ralph Guerrera, but there are no more questions in the queue. So Representative Amity, if you want to close on your bill. Oh, I'm sorry. Also fill out cards to support Michael Paul Bryant, and Ralph Guerrera, Express Realty. Thank you. Representative Amity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay. So House Bill 235 extends the stand your ground protections to places of worship. It's not an extreme expansion, it's a minor one. It would serve to protect even the security teams at churches who at this point in time would face an undue amount of scrutiny in the event that they have to use deadly force. The presumption that force was correct in self-defense is what's extended to those who defend themselves in homes, businesses, and cars. And so we're simply extending that to places of worship. So I ask for your favorable passage.
Thank you. Representative Baclaw has made a motion to report House Bill 235 as amended favorable. Is there any objection? Representative James objects. A vote yes will be to report the bill favorable to the floor. A vote no will be to defer the bill or to kill the bill. So Ms. Shakesteiner, you want to call the roll?
Representative Bacala? Yes. Representative Bagneris? No. Representative Carpenter? No. Representative Cruz? Yes. Representative Duplessis? No. Representative Dwight? Yes. Representative Gaines? No. Representative Hodges? Yes. Representative Howard? Yes. Representative James? No. Representative Marcel? No. Representative Marino? No. Representative Moss? Yes. Representative Muscarello? Yes. Representative Norton? No. Representative Pilot? Yes. Representative Mack? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We have 9 yeas and 8 nays.
Bill report favorable to the floor.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. Representative Harris.
Pardon me. Thank you. I'm good.
House Bill 101. Representative Harris, the table is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, here this morning to present to you House Bill 101, which provides for the creation of a Louisiana voluntary do not sell list. As the chairman knows, I've spoken to him. We're going to defer the bill. Reason being, the bill unfortunately has a $358,000 fiscal note. So we know when it goes next door, we're done. But I wanted to take the time to let everyone know exactly what it was that the bill was doing. We're in criminal justice, but I do believe that we should have been in health and welfare. Because this bill is not about guns, it's about mental health. It's about a person pretty much stating that they're asking to put themselves on a do not sell list, which means they do not want to have a person that's able to sell firearms sell them a firearm because they feel that they are a threat to themselves or they feel that they are a threat to others. So versus, and again, this is strictly voluntary. So there are no Second Amendment right infringements. Government is not coming into your homes, not coming into your vehicles, not coming into your private space to do anything or infringe upon your rights. Again, it's strictly voluntary. And I have next to me Ms. Katrina Breeze, who I think that is probably one of the bravest people that I know. And I say that because this legislation was brought to me by her. Unfortunately, her mother took her life with a firearm. And currently there are 8 states that have tried this. We only have 1 that have actually passed in Washington. And, excuse me. So, again, not to belabor the point, one of the things, and I spoke to the chairman about this, I just wanted to let you all know what it was that we're doing. I did not want to have families come here today to present on a bill that's probably the worst day of their lives, and to then possibly get it out of here and have it go to appropriations where we have to find $358,000. So I spoke to advocates for it and let them know that we were deferring the bill today, simply because of that, because I did not think that, and I know you all, knowing each and every one of you on this committee, we would not have wanted to put families through that this morning, again, being one of the worst days in their lives. But I do want, if Mr. Chairman, if you allow me, I would like for Ms. Breeze to have an opportunity to say something, because again, this legislation was brought to me by her, and she is a person that is a result of what we're trying to accomplish through this bill. So, Ms. Breeze, 3 minutes.
Thank you. Last summer, my mother took her cell phone and she Googled the words gun stores New Orleans. And within a couple hours, she had shot herself at the park near our house. There was nothing that prevented her from doing this. She had tried hundreds of doctor's appointments, dozens of medications. What our family really needed was one more tool in order to save her life, and that would have been the ability for her to voluntarily prevent herself from purchasing a firearm. This has been a horrible nightmare for our family. I've received hundreds of emails and messages from other families in Louisiana that know this nightmare as well. And I hope that when this comes up in the future, you will consider giving our most vulnerable citizens here in Louisiana a tool that can empower them to save their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, the bill is being deferred by the author.
Right, so pretty much in closing, members, just to give you all an idea of what the bill was doing, it was creating this do not sell list. What a person would do, they would voluntarily sign up online via state police. They would then, that would then be uploaded to the national system. Person trying to purchase a firearm, they will not be able to. There are some things that we were going to change in the bill, but you technically, after 21 days, you can have yourself voluntarily removed from that. We would probably bring that number down at some point. If you wanted to do it prior to the 21 days, you could petition the court, ask the court to allow you to be removed from that list. So that's technically what it was doing. I just want to make sure that everyone in the committee knows that I will probably, at some point this session, we would do this as some sort of study resolution to figure out between now and next year what it is that we can do. So we're going to get in make sure all law enforcement is involved. We're also going to make sure that clerk of courts are involved, because in the state of Washington, it's pretty much through the clerk of court's office through a petition. We've also been working with the NRA, and we'll continue to work with them. I've had their commitment that they're willing to continue to work with me on this between now and next year. So again, we're going to voluntarily defer it. Reasons being $358,000 fiscal note, and again, not wanting to have families come here today and testify on something that's this important.
Okay. All right, Representative Harris is going to defer the bill, which means the bill will not be coming back this session.